Tonight we're going to have several individuals up talking to you, the audience, about why they're running for office to represent you. And they're going to answer some specific questions that we've come up with at the council level for issues that we feel are important to the citizens of Kalispell. With that, I'm going to start first off with Mr. Ian Wheeler. Ian is a Libertarian candidate for House District 6. So what I'd like to do is welcome you at this point in time. So welcome, Ian. Please introduce yourself. Tell us why you're running for House District 6 and how you plan on earning the vote of your constituents.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor Johnson. So as you just previously mentioned, my name is Ian Wheeler. I'm the Libertarian Party candidate for House District 6. I'm a student at the University of Montana. I study political science. And I've been a resident of Flathead County for the last 13 years. I'm running for House District 6 because I want to spread the libertarian ideology across the state and show people that limited government and individual liberty should be the paramount values that we take going forward when addressing issues of governance and of personal conduct. I think that specifically in regards to land management, giving the power back to the state, as we know how to manage our lands much better than the federal government does. I think giving power back to the state as far as education, getting off of federal standards, and I also think that we need to address our right to privacy, which is guaranteed to us in our state constitution. And these three things are something that I believe strongly in and are the reasons why I'm running for State House District 6.
Great. Ian, the first question I'm going to give you is related to infrastructure funding. In 2015, the legislature and the governor failed to come to an agreement on an infrastructure plan for the state of Montana. Now, 2 years later, as quoted by the Beacon, Montana's general fund is nearly 4% behind projections, with oil and gas tax receipts down by more than half. The slowdown amounts to more than $67 million the government had counted on. What's more, fluctuating prices at gas pumps are translating to budgetary uncertainty. With this as a backdrop, was the prior legislature wise to avoid bonding improvements, and how would you propose to fund infrastructure in the 2017 session?
That's a great question. So living in Montana, infrastructure is incredibly important as tourism is such a vital industry for our economy. As a libertarian, obviously it's hard to address an issue of funding because we believe in lowering taxes and less government spending, but obviously there are things that need to be, steps that need to be taken in order to address this problem. One such way I think we can go about doing this is, for example, we can legalize the sale of recreational marijuana and tax it so that we can use those funds for things like infrastructure that are so direly needed in our state. And rather than taxing hard work and what people already own, we tax them on their consumption. And so that it's more of a fair tax for Montanans, and it provides for things that we need and currently don't have in the status quo.
So as a follow-on, should we entertain removing some of the issues from politics and health, some of this issue from politics and Helena, and simply amend Montana Code Annotated 7-6-15, which for the viewing audience is related to the resort tax law, and remove the population limit in the resort community definition and allow all communities in Montana the freedom to vote to fund their own infrastructure projects?
That's a very tough question to answer. I think that state level funding is going to be the best. I don't think that doing it on a localized way is really going to be effective. I think that certain communities will be able to do it a lot more efficiently than others. And I think that it's something that the state of Montana should address more so than local communities such as the Flathead Valley.
I'm going to do a follow-on because you mentioned legalizing marijuana and taxing the sale of marijuana. The question I have related to that is if we tax the sale, legalize and tax the sale of marijuana, would we generate enough in tax revenue to pay for what some say are the social ills that come from legalized marijuana use?
So I personally don't believe that there are social ills that come to legalized marijuana use. I think that we'll be able to pay for things like higher teacher salaries, we'll pay for infrastructure improvements, and realistically, if we legalize marijuana, we'll actually we will treat these people who are nonviolent drug offenders, so we get them out of our overcrowded prisons, and we can put people who actually deserve to be there in there, and we can treat this rather not a criminal issue, but more as a mental health issue, and give these people the help that they actually need. Whereas when we just throw them in jail and give them a sentence, we're not doing anyone any favor.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is public safety. In your opinion, what is the role of the state government as it relates to public safety and protection of our residents?
Okay, just to build off of even the last question, I think if we do legalize marijuana, again, it would free up our prisons so that we can put these actual violent offenders and people who are committing crimes on other people to actually be in our prisons. And I think that the overcrowded prison population is something that we need to address in the next legislature session, whether it be through the means that I've just mentioned or something else that my fellow legislators might bring up. But I think that the state, there definitely is a problem with overcrowded prisons, and that's the first way to address that issue.
I'm going to bring us into a current topic. Recently, the city of Missoula has invited in refugees, especially related to the crisis in Syria. My question is, should each community in Montana be allowed to make their own decision as to whether they accept refugees in their communities with no consideration of the impact it may have on neighboring communities?
I believe yes. I think that each community should have the decision to make, or should have the right to make that decision for themselves, because each community is going to be differently well equipped, or rather not equipped to handle this refugee situation. And I think, for example, Missoula felt that they would be able to support these refugees, and I wholeheartedly support their right to make that decision. But at the same time, people in Ravalli County, for example, or even here in our own Flathead County, may not support that decision, and I think that they should have the right to not bring these people in. But I don't think that it makes so much of an impact on neighboring communities that it should be a one decision, I guess.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a philosophical question so the viewing audience can get an understanding of the principles that govern your behavior. As an example, perhaps in the course of this next legislative session, you'll be presented with an offer to get somebody's vote on a bill that's very important to you to have it passed, in exchange for your support on another bill that violates your promise that you may have made to your constituents. Simple question. Do you take the deal as the ends justify the means? My political ideology is that of limited government and individual rights are what should be the most important thing. And so I would not support any legislation that would violate that. So I guess my answer would be no. So last question, and this is your closing. If elected, please tell us what a successful legislative session would look like for you. What would you like to see accomplished?
All right. For me, I think a successful legislative session would look like a balanced budget, first and foremost. I think that we need to cut down on wasteful spending. Each legislator should ask themselves a question before we fund something. Is this something that government should involve itself with? And if the answer is no, then we shouldn't provide funding for it. And I think that there's a lot of things we need to leave to the private sector. I think we need to cut regulations so that small business owners can compete just as much as these corporations. And I think that overall, if we can limit government and we can make sure that people's civil liberties are protected, whether it be privacy, whether we bring back the power to manage our own public lands to the state of Montana, or whether we get off of federal standards for education and actually provide the type of education that our students deserve, I think that's going to be a successful legislative section.
Well, Mr. Whaler, I appreciate you showing up, and good luck in the election.